Good morning, guys. Welcome to this um, Wednesday, July 2nd. And it's just kept last full trading day before the long weekend really begins. Because, yeah, tomorrow is just a half a day in the equities. We have a ton of news tomorrow, though, and not so much today. So it's going to be slowing off pretty quick here, or slowing down, I should say, pretty quick. The news this morning, we had the mortgage apps came out, was to the upside a little bit. The job cut report came out at 7:30, was a little bit better than expected, a cut in half. About 8:15, we get the ADP report. And usually taken as a precursor for the employment situation coming out tomorrow, not Friday, but tomorrow. And it's very interesting to see how, how disconnected those two are. I mean, the ADP report can come out good, and then the employment situation comes out completely different. So there's just a hint as to what it's just a data point, put it that way. And then we get an oil report at 10:30. And so we don't have a lot of news to drive the market today. However, tomorrow we get a slew of stuff, 8:30, 9:45, and 10. Biggest one, employment situation coming out right there at 8:30 tomorrow. And then it's just a half a day. So the early close on the equities, the energies, interest rates, foreign exchange all stay open until the regular close on tomorrow. But the equities close early. So, and then on Friday, Friday, July 4th, we have just a half a day as well. But I'm going to be opening the room tomorrow anyway, even if it's a short day, and then because there's so much news and stuff happening. So we're going to go at it at that point as well. So, looking at the ES. Nasdaq is pulling back a little bit. ES holding on a little bit better, I would say. Yesterday was a full day without extension, so that starts your stage two process. However, the overnight extended to the upside. Now, I'm going to look at that with a grain of salt, I think, because because we are right up here. It looks almost like a stop run instead. I mean, technically they extended in overnight. I'm going to wait for the day session to extend before I call this an extension. And really, because if this is like a light volume overnight pop to the upside, this could very well be like a massive fake out to begin to initiate a little bit of a selling process here. We're getting into that July, August time frame, and it's traditionally pretty weak. Fair amount of weakness kicks in, and then we have a lot of big item news coming out, which potentially could change that to not be as weak of a season as it normally is. But it's anyone's guess how it's going to come out. If that big bill now passes, I think the market at least it has a shot at not selling off. I think the market is pricing in that it's going to happen, and anything other than that will probably set the market off to the downside in a big way. Now, so starting off from the long side again, watching that lower edge 62.25, going to be a little bit more aggressive on the short side this morning. So if they start taking out that 25, I'm getting on the short side and looking for retracement trade down to that 61.50s. There could be a probe down below this area, of course. It's not by any means out of the question, but I would look to buy weakness early on, 62.50s, 62.45s, 62.35s, 62.25s for rotations back up. If they take out the 25s, I'm taking off that the long bias going back a range bound, and if they taking off the long bias going back range, but I'm still looking to buy against the 62.10s and the 6200s. If those two comes out, the 6200 and the 6190s, we are back on the short side. But I'm going to be a little bit more aggressive on the short side. Yesterday, we were looking at changing that bias really down here at the 6190s. At this point, I'm dropping my long bias already at the 25s. And it could be a nice short trade if that comes out for running it all the way down here to the 6200s. So I'm not gonna rule out that starts happening. Just be mindful that you may see a fake out trade there, and I mean a fake out move that you run it lower but then reverse it. So it could be a still opportunities to get long against that 6210, 6200, 6190s. But I would, as I say, those three A little bit of caution. That's the last ones I look to buy against. At that point, after that, I'm on the short side of this. So below the 61.90, that's going to be into this little volume edge, you see. So they start trading down in that volume edge, staying on the short side, looking to see how far they can take it on the downside. But if you can get on a short trade already around the 62.25, and then they keep running this lower, you could be in a great spot for a pretty big trade all the way down here to the 61.50s. That would be a really big trade. So I mean, at this point, starting off that third quarter, I'm seeing a little bit of weakness, not seeing that crazy continuation we not necessarily expected, but we had a pretty good run up here going into the end of the last quarter. But it's stalling right now. It's not failing yet. It's stalling, and this little run up here, we've seen those before, the overnight strength, and then met by some selling in the day session. So hence, I'm going to be a little bit more aggressive on that short side. So initially looking to buy 62.50s, 62.45s, 35s down to the 25s for rotations back up again. Below 25, off with a long bias. Still looking to buy again 62.10, 6200, 61.90. Could be a nice short trade if that comes out and you can stick with that trade and for a move down here. Could be a nice 20-point trade right down there. Below that 61.90, we are on the short side of this. Then the market is pulling back a lot more than it should, and for this to be able to trade higher again. So at that point, I think we are back in a correction, or not correction, but I mean at that point they're going to pull back a little bit more than I would like. So that's kind of how we get started. On the way up for short setups against the 62.60s and the 70s here for rotations back down, but not going to be very aggressive on the short side of this at all. If anything, there would be us intraday scalping against an upper area. But I'm going to be I try to be patient and wait for really good setup and triggers on the short side. But it could also be as you see early strength and a run up here to the 70s and start failing. Could also be a nice short trade. I'm just not going to be that aggressive on it. And that happens quickly, I'll rather miss that trade and get a little bit more certainty than try to be aggressive and just get caught on the wrong side of it. So we'll see. It's light volume, 115,000 on the micros. We are at 95,000 on the ES. So volume is slowing down. It's been slowing down every day this week. And so people are bugging out for the July 4th weekend. And the last burst of activity most likely comes tomorrow morning, and then everyone is just out of it. All right, so that's the ES to get started. Looking at the bonds and the NASDAQ. So bond market, pulling back a little bit. They are back down in this lower area again. Let me pull up my capital flow that's real quick on the bond market. So they were up here for a bit. I got a little bit excited for a second. Now they're right back in this lower area again. So they could not take it higher. They got knocked down back to the little attractor at the 114.20. So we are pretty much range bound. I would start off with a slight bias to the downside to see if they're going to run this lower down in this distribution because this is some range to run it lower in. So initially I'm going to look to sell against the 26s, the 115 up to the 115 4 to 5, 4 to 6 here for rotations back down. If this trade up above that London high, I'm going to be taking off my short bias and going back range bound at that point. Then they're right back to this volume edge again and just sitting here. So looking to sell early strength early on if that to see if they can take it lower. And if they support holds, they start going sideways around this attractor area, then yes, probably going to go back just range bound. That's kind of the dynamic on bonds at least. One market has been pretty quiet, so that's good. That's not nothing crazy going on there. Rates reasonably steady. Nasdaq is the guy I'm kind of watching for my. It's a little bit of concern, right? So they had a pretty good retracement yesterday, an inside day. So we are in stage 2 on that profile, and definitely not showing a lot of strength in the overnight. So they're back down here a bit. They did extend quite a bit though. So, but Nasdaq is just basically in stage 2, and we'll see if they're going to keep extending to the downside here. So, in stage 2, you're looking for weakness to find a spot that's going to come off the selling, at least in the short term. So we cut off the buying up here at the 22,900s. Now we're cutting off the selling, and then the ADP just came out. Now we're looking for a spot to cut off the selling, and then we'll see how far they want to run it. I mean, they can technically run it all the way down here to the 22,400, 360 to 400s. Could not be surprising if something like that happens, but as I said, yeah, you just have to take it with a grain of salt. We know the development process of this, so we had to move out of the middle to the upside. They cut off the buying at the 22,900s. Now we're looking to retrace in stage two, looking for spot to cut off the selling. When that happens, we are going to be able to get into stage three and start building value. And right now we are probably in that stage two. So I would not be surprised if they start pushing the lower edge of this to the downside and see how far basically to find a spot where they can cut off the selling. The prime area is going to be down here at the 22,590s. If they can hold, we may have a distribution building already up here. But if they take out that 590s, I think if you see on capital flow, if they take out that 590, the lower end of this, they can certainly run it all the way down here to that 370, 360, 370 level, maybe even lower. You can see reverse retest to that lower edge at the 270, which they were breaking out from. So it could be a pretty good move to the downside on the NASDAQ in the short term here, but then again, we'll just have to see how things shake out. I think tomorrow is going to be the big day for moves like that, but you never know. Sometimes the market moves in a day without a lot of volume, a lot of news as well. But I would look to buy weakness at this point against the 630s and the 590s. 590s comes out, I'm taking off my long bias, going back range bound. I'm still looking to buy against support at the 540s down to the 470s. Below 470s, I'm on a short side of this to see how far I can take it. So, I mean, it started tracing that much. There's definitely more to it. Then it's still part of stage two, and I don't think they're going to retrace the whole thing, but it's just going to be a little bit more than you expect, that kind of thing. So the June ADP was down 33K versus 95 expectation to be up 95. The big, well, not big change, but a little bit of a surprise there. So watch that level, 22,590, or yeah, 590. That comes out, taking off the long bias at that point. Below that, the 470s, I'm back on the short side of this. They could stall technically at the 430s here, but you see here down at the, here's that 370 lower edge. So if they start taking out that 590, chances are they could run it all the way down here to that 400 attractor area. So it could be an opportunity for a nice short there as well. To run it lower. Just have to get on it and be able to stick with it, you know. So that's it. ESN on the way up on the NASDAQ before I kind of move away. Looking for short setups against early on against the I would say 680 is pretty aggressive, but the 740s and the 775s to 80s. Against these two. If they trade up above 70, 75, I'm going to be back range bound on this at that point. Still looking for shorts against the 800s and potentially 850s. But given where they are, they pulled back pretty good. They haven't moved higher. So early on, looking for shorts against those two 740s and the 780s for rotations back down. About 780s, I'm back range bound on this. I'm thinking at that point, they're probably going to stay in this upper range. So that's how I'm looking at the NASDAQ to get started. And then finally, oil and gold. So gold is pretty much in this attractor area to 33.40. So this moved higher the other day. Looked to me like they were almost ready to bust higher. They did not. They just kind of held here. Then they got a little bit lower here in the overnight. So they're pretty much in this attractor area now around the 33.40, 45. So I would say range bound trading. Watch these upper edges, the 56s and the 65s. Last one would be 69s. But if they come out, if they take out these two upper areas, the 64, 65s and the 70s, look for a potential move higher at that point. But I'm going to assume they're going to stay range bound right now. So I'm going to look to sell against those areas. If they get up there, they're going to buy against support at 47s, 43s down to the 43s down to the 33s for rotations back up. So below, I would say that level below the 38s, that would be the 33s, looking to buy against those two support areas. They're going to get short against the 63, 64, and the 70s here for rotations back down. So if they take out these upper areas, hop on the long side and stay on it. See how far they can take it. And then finally, oil, a little bit to the upside, not breaking out just yet. They are up here against this upper area, 66.30s. If they start trading above that, look for a potential move higher. That would be kind of breaking out of this. Come on. I may miss my oil. The capital flow in oil, if they start taking out this area, they can run it up here and test this upper edge at 67, 70, 68. But I'm still thinking short, or lower prices. So I'm just waiting for them to bust through this lower 64 edge. And all the policies right now is to gear towards producing more energy, more oil, more nat gas, everything. So these prices will be coming down eventually. As you can tell, nothing is certain or nothing goes in a straight line. So looking to get short against this area 66.30s. If they take that out, I would look for moves higher and see at least stay on the long side in the short term at least. And if they resistance holds at 66.4, it could be a beautiful rotation right back down here to the 65.30. So buying opportunities, I would wait until they get down here to the 65.20s. They're going to buy 65.20, 65.60s down to the 64s. Oh, sorry, 65.20, 64, 64.60s, and 64 even for rotations back up again. Now, if you want to look for, if you're thinking retest at a high, potentially higher, you potentially could look to buy against the 66s and the 65.60s. I would just be not super aggressive on it. I think if that upper area holds, chances are the upper edge held, and they're probably going to just run down here to the mean. So buying against a little bit of weakness, it may just get you caught in that sense. So not going to be, that's why I'm not really pushing for that, but I'm thinking that upper edge holds, we're probably going to stay in this range, probably trade back down again. All right. The interesting part would be that if they take out that 65.30, it starts trading higher. That would be interesting. That would be something. So range-bound gold, range-bound oil still. Look for that retest at a high on oil. Back to the ES. A little bit of reaction, as you can tell, on the ADP number. But not necessarily any directional move. So they were down, rotation back and forth there, and then let's see what happens. So we'll wrap it there for now, guys. So again, staying alongside on the ES and NASDAQ to get started. Watch that lower edge on the ES. It's going to be the 65.25s. NASDAQ is going to be the 22.590s. That comes out, and then we are still kind of retracing in that stage two phase. Alrighty, so good trading, guys. It's getting close to the a nice long weekend, so let's trade with a bit of caution. Light volume trading could always be a little bit treacherous. Alrighty, guys, good trading. I'll see you back at 11:30 for the next update. Later.